Hey, hi, what's up? It's Emma. I wanted to talk about the whole mobility, flexibility. You hear those words thrown around a lot. It's like, okay, got to focus on your flexibility, got to focus on your mobility. One, I feel like they get confused a lot. We hear you have to work on it. And it's like, okay, but where do I start? Like, where do I start with this flexibility and mobility stuff? A factor in health and fitness is testing. And without testing, you can't determine your baseline. And without your baseline, how do you determine progression? So inside of that, then let's look at a flexibility / mobility baseline testing that you can use at home to assess where you're at versus where it would be ideal for you to be to perform the movements in the gym that you're trying to perform to better your health. With that comes the functional movement screen, or the FMS for short. Typically, it's administered by a practitioner. They're observing your movements and they're scoring you. After reading the Athletic Body Imbalance book by Gray Cook, he devised a way to perform it at home, and that's something that I would like to share with y'all. So following this, you'll see how to set up the squat, the inline lunge, the hurdle step, the active straight leg raise, and the seated rotation at home in a way that you can test yourself, determine where your strengths and or weaknesses are, and then from there, in following videos, I will show you how to progress the squat, progress the inline lunge, hurdle step, all those things. Ways that you can add it into your warm-up. It can be its own workout in of itself, and it can also be a part of your cool down. But the most important thing is they are only going to benefit you if you're adding them in. And then you have the FMS to retest to make sure that you're actually making progress how you need to be. And if you're not making progress, then you may be attacking the wrong thing that's limiting you. But you'll at least have a tool to assess if you need to reevaluate. So, as you'll see, we've got the FMS coming. Squat. So you're going to need a broom handle or a stick of some sort, and you need tape for a couple of these. So we're going to start with the tape. You're going to put the tape about a foot's length away from the door. So right about there for me. Try not to break anything. We are going to start with toes pretty much at the edge of the tape. You're going to take your broom handle, and ideally it will be long enough that you can put it behind your head, resting on the tops of your shoulders. And then I want my elbows here to be at 90 degrees. So essentially my wrist should be slightly right over my elbows. I don't want to be too wide. I don't want to be too narrow. So from here, my feet should be about hip width apart. Try not to go too wide here, not quite shoulder width. I'm going to press straight overhead. The bar is going to stay here. And then from there, I'm going to try to descend into a squat and come back up. I'm going to go for 3 of those. For me, I need a little wider. And as you can see, that would be a fail because I touched the wall. Go down as low as you can and come back up. Next one here is going to be your hurdle step. Some things to note. So for the tape, it's going to be across the doorway. As you can see, if I walk up to it, it's going to be kind of right in line here with about an inch below my kneecap. So what that typically is, where your tibial tuberosity is, or this bump right below where your kneecap. So if I take from my kneecap, slide my thumb down and feel kind of where it starts to get bony again, that's going to be your tibial tuberosity. That's the height that we need the tape to be at across the door. So from here, back my feet up a little bit so my toes aren't directly under the tape. Again, that dowel is going to go behind our head, on top of our shoulders, and not too wide, not too narrow. I want my elbows to be at around 90 degrees. And this time the dowel is going to stay resting across my shoulders. I'm not going to press up. Rules for this one. Eyes forward. You're going to try to keep your hips, your foot, and your knee all in alignment. So what that means is my foot shouldn't end up out here to get over the tape. It should be lifting up, reaching over, coming back through, right? The end goal is to not really hit the tape. Now, if it's on the return to start, not as end all be all as it is if you're hitting it on the way over. But again, what we want to do is 3 times per side, reach up, over, tap that heel down, and come back. Now, what we don't want to see is leaning or tilting of the dowel, loss of balance, rotation here, and we don't want to see coming out to come across. We want to be able to simply lift up, reach over, tap down, come back. My hips shouldn't really shift. Again. Next one, we'll have our inline lunge. So this time we are going to need a piece of tape that is from the height of our tibial tuberosity relatively to the floor. So might not be perfect here, but we gonna try. Roughly find the middle of the doorway here and try to place it so that way the doorway is the middle of the tape from all aspects. Cutting it across this way and then this way. Dowel is again going to go up and across my shoulders, 90-degree angle here. Whichever foot is in the back, that toe is going to go at the end of the tape on this side of the doorway. And then this heel is going to be at the front, right? So now my end goal here is to come straight down and back up. Trying to keep that dowel on my shoulders, trying not to lose my balance. Down and back up. Down and back up. Passing movements here are going to be my torso staying upright, not losing my center of balance here so the dowel stays even. I want to make sure that both my heels stay on the ground. My heel and my toe should stay touching the tape, and my back knee should touch the tape and come back up. If for some reason I can't get down, my heel comes up, my torso goes back or forward, my feet come off the tape and I've got to go kind of wider to get down. Those are all going to be... All right, so next one's going to be our active straight leg raise. So what I want you to do is I want you to take your hands kind of on your hips, take your middle finger and try to find that bony point at the front of your hip. That's going to be your ASIS. This part of your hip is what's going to be in line with the door when you're laying on your back. So what that's going to look like, I'm going to come down, lay on the ground, and I want to make sure that this part of my hip here is what's in line with the doorway. One leg's going to stay down. This leg needs to stay straight and on the ground. That toe's got to stay pointing towards you. We don't want it pointing away at the wall, and we don't want this leg coming up and being bent. It's going to be nice and straight. Opposite leg's going to be straight. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to raise this leg all the way up. And what I want is for the outside of my ankle here to be in line or past the doorway while this leg stays straight and on the ground. You got 3 reps per side. Keeping it nice and slow and controlled. Last but not least, we have the seated rotation. So we're going to try to do our best to sit crisscross applesauce. One foot should be roughly on each side of the door frame. I'm going to kind of scooch myself to the middle. I want to take the dowel across my chest this time. So it's going to be on my collarbones. And then when I cross my arms over one another, I also want it resting across my shoulders. From here, I want you to imagine that you're being pulled up by the top of your head. Your spine should be as tall as you can keep it. And then throughout this movement, we don't want to get all rounded here. So up nice and tall, rotate to one side. The goal is that you should be able to get that dowel to touch the door. And I'm a little lacking on this side. Perform all 3 to one side. 1, 2, 3. A fail would be rounded chest, dowel doesn't quite touch the door, or you gotta bring your arms down and that dowel away from your chest in order to turn and touch the door. Here, reach up, reach over, tap down, come back. And don't hit the tape. No. So here's an example of a scoring sheet. It is basically scored based off of the values of 0 to 3. 0 means there was pain and that you could not complete the movement pattern. A 1 would mean that you had more than one fail. So that means that the dowel touched the wall, you couldn't hit parallel, or you lost your balance in something like the overhead squat. A 2 means that you could perform the movement, but maybe you needed some sort of assistance. So for the overhead squat, maybe you had to elevate your heels, go a little bit wider, or, you know, just the dowel touched the wall, but you could hit parallel and you didn't lose balance. A 3 would mean that you hit it perfectly and there was no marks counted against you. As you can see here, I've got an example scoring sheet, and it kind of just breaks down. Let's just say this is what yours looks like post doing your home evaluation. Overhead squat of 1, hurdle step, left side 3, right side 1, inline lunge, left side 3, right side 2, active straight leg raise, left 3, right 3, and seated rotation, left 2, right 2. So you're probably like, okay, what do I do with this? Where do I go from here? What you want to focus on is unilateral or single leg movement discrepancies first. So the biggest one here is going to be your hurdle lunge, with the fact that left got a 3 and right got a 1. So that lets you know that the right leg is either less mobile, less flexible, less stable, less strong than the left leg. So what you want to do here now is, following these videos, I will give you progressions for the different movement patterns, and I'll start with the hurdle step. And again, there's simple things that you can add in before, during, or after your workout. Something that you can do just to get some light movement in for the day. And then on top of that, it's also suggested that you do more sets and reps on the right leg than on the left leg. So let's just say you're doing lunges, for example. On that right leg, you're going to do 3 sets of lunges. On the left leg, you're going to do 1 to 2 sets of lunges at the same weight. You're going to pick a weight that feels moderately intense for the left leg, but challenging for the right leg. And then from there, after about 4 weeks of doing the progressive exercises, and also maybe doing some strength training that's tailored towards your right leg versus your left leg, you're going to retest. And I would suggest retesting all the movements, because you may notice improvements in other movements, even if they're not the ones that you were progressing. So especially like your overhead squat, that's a bilateral double leg movement. You may notice progressions just due to correcting issues on the right leg discrepancy compared to the left leg discrepancy. And then you also notice it was always right versus left in a lot of the other ones. You may notice improvement in those as well. So biggest thing here is use this to know where you're at, and then follow along in these other videos to kind of help you get where you want to be. And I hope that you notice improvements in your overall movement capabilities and patterns by doing these progressions and regressions. So stick with me, catch me on the next video when I explain the progressions/regressions for the hurdle step movement pattern. Stay tuned, guys, and I'll catch you later. Peace.